Princess Anne has executed a brutal iron protocol exposing Queen Camilla's clandestine asset transfers and banning her commoner children from royal sanctuary. As Charles fights illness, Anne's reclamation of Balmoral and Ray Millhouse marks a devastating end to the Parker Bowles privilege. The current reality for Camilla is a far cry from the celebrated sun-drenched coronation of 2023. Following Princess Anne's explosive exposure of the clandestine transfer of Ray Millhouse, Camilla has been forced into what is being described as a humiliating corrective phase. Reports gathered from various palace administrative streams, ranging from treasury whispers to security log leaks, indicate that the Queen Consort is now being personally invoiced for every penny of taxpayer-funded security and royal staff time utilised by her children, Tom Parker BS and Laura Lopes, over the last 3 years. This is not merely a request for reimbursement, it is a form of financial excommunication. The internal ledgers, as interpreted by those familiar with the Duke of Cornwall's rigorous and unforgiving accounting standards, suggest that Camilla has been ordered to freeze all private asset transfers until a full Crown integrity audit is completed. For a woman who sought to secure her children's wealth against the grim backdrop of King Charles's increasingly fragile health, the result has been the exact opposite of her intent. Her children are now under a global microscope, their private business interests and offshore links scrutinised for any scent of royal profiteering or improper use of the sovereign shadow. Camilla's current standing within the inner circle of the House of Windsor has reached an all-time low, bordering on the non-existent. The Parker BS problem, which the palace previously managed with a quiet gritting of teeth tolerance, has been dragged into the harsh, unforgiving light by Princess Anne. The consequences for Camilla's children have been described by some observers as socially and logistically catastrophic. Tom and Laura, once seen as the modern blended extensions of a progressive monarchy, have been effectively barred from all non-public areas of royal residences. Various interpretations of the recent security logs at Windsor and Sandringham suggest a distinct sense that the party is over. The secondary keycards previously issued to the Parker Bowles family have been deactivated. The guest cottages at the Balmoral estate are being rekeyed under military-grade supervision, and the household staff have been reminded under no uncertain terms, and with the threat of immediate dismissal, that the Parker BS family are private citizens with zero constitutional status and no right to command royal resources. Camilla is currently tasked with the near impossible undoing the pervasive perception of opportunistic greed. To mitigate the profound damage to the monarchy's image, she has been pressured by the Council of the Blood, the core family members led by the iron-willed Anne, and a resolute Prince William to issue a private deed of indemnity. This document is a legal shackle. It essentially forces her to waive any and all future claims her children might have on properties or lands adjacent to royal holdings. The psychological toll on the Queen Consort is evident to those who see her in the rare moments she is not performing for the cameras. The woman who once navigated the treacherous decades-long waters of public opinion to become queen is now finding that the most dangerous predators are not the tabloids but the family she married into. To fully grasp the depth of the fury currently radiating from Princess Anne, one must look at the specific calculated betrayals regarding Balmoral Castle and Ray Millhouse. Camilla stands accused of operating behind the backs of the Royal Council and the direct heirs Prince William and Prince Edward by attempting to cement a private dynasty within the ancient borders of the royal estate, specifically her quiet transfer of Ray Millhouse, a 1996 purchase in Wiltshire, originally meant to be her personal escape from the pressures of royal life, to her children in early 2026, was viewed as a strategic move to circumvent inheritance taxes and secure a permanent royal-adjacent stronghold without the council's oversight. This manoeuvre, combined with her habit of hosting the Parker BS clan at Balmoral, as if they were stakeholders of the 50,000-acre Scottish sanctum, went directly against the late Queen Elizabeth II's sacred ethos. Anne's intervention highlights a fundamental truth that Camilla allegedly chose to ignore. These properties are not loot to be divided or leveraged for the benefit of non-royal relatives, but sacred trusts held for the nation. The indignation of the royal siblings stems from the fact that Camilla reportedly utilised royal legal resources and confidential palace advisors to facilitate these private transfers, a blatant and unpardonable crossing of the line between the Crown's majesty and Parker BS's private financial gain. While King Charles III continues his grueling and exhausting battle with cancer, a fight that began in early 2024 and has noticeably thinned the monarch's legendary energy, Princess Anne has stepped into the power vacuum as the de facto enforcer of the Windsor legacy. Many interpret Charles's recent leniency, such as the controversial decision to open the private rooms of Balmoral to the public for a fee, as the desperate actions of a man trying to leave a modernist or financially viable legacy in his final chapters. However, Anne views this as nothing short of a fire sale of the monarchy's very soul. As Charles focuses his remaining strength on legacy projects like the countdown to COP30, Anne is focusing on the back of the house. Her surgical actions to reclaim the narrative from Camilla are not merely the result of a long-standing sibling rivalry. They represent a high-stakes strike to prevent the Parker Beesification of the British monarchy. Camilla now faces the grim daily reality that her tenure as Queen Consort may be remembered not for her decades of loyalty to Charles, but for a failed, clandestine attempt to enrich her own bloodline at the expense of the Crown's most cherished and historically significant estates. The Princess Royal has made it clear the Crown does not negotiate with those who treat its heritage as a personal real estate portfolio, and the price of entry back into the fold of trust may be a price Camilla Parker Bowles can never truly pay. While the legal skirmishes over Ray Milhouse represent a breach of financial trust, the conflict surrounding Balmoral Castle is viewed by Princess Anne as a direct assault on the monarchy's spiritual heart. Balmoral is not merely a residence, it is a 50,000-acre fortress of royal identity in the Scottish Highlands, privately purchased by Prince Albert for Queen Victoria in 1852. Unlike the Crown estate properties, Balmoral is the private inheritance of the sovereign, a distinction that Camilla allegedly interpreted as a loophole for personal entitlement. The tension escalated throughout 2024 and 2025 as King Charles, influenced by Camilla's vision of a modernized and accessible monarchy, began dismantling the privacy that Queen Elizabeth II had spent 7 decades protecting. The decision to open the castle's internal sanctums to public tours for the first time in history was met with silent fury by the Princess Royal. However, the true breaking point for Anne was not the tourists. It was the guest list. Interpretations from those within the Balmoral staff suggest that under Camilla's influence, the estate began to feel less like a royal retreat and more like a private club for the Parker BS family. Tom Parker BS and Laura Lopes were reportedly granted access to the estate's most private quarters, including areas historically reserved for the monarch's immediate bloodline. Sources close to the Highland staff have whispered about the usurpation of the hills where Camilla's grandchildren were seen enjoying the privileges of the estate, hunting, riding, and utilising the royal gillies without the burden of official duty or the discipline of royal protocol. To Anne, who learnt to ride on these very moors under the watchful eye of Prince Philip, this was an unpardonable desecration. The Princess Royal's response has been a masterclass in bureaucratic warfare. She has reportedly challenged the guest status of any non-royal individual staying at Balmoral for extended periods, pointing to the immense security costs and the lack of constitutional precedent. Anne's argument, supported by a growing consensus between Prince William and Prince Edward, is that if Balmoral is to be commercialised for the public, it cannot simultaneously be privatised for the Parker BS family at the sovereign's expense. The friction between Anne's Duty First Code and Camilla's Family First approach has turned the Highland retreat into a Cold War zone. Anne has pointedly reminded the King that Balmoral was her mother's sanctuary in her final days, a place of solemnity, not a weekend getaway for private citizens who bear no titles. By securing the support of the direct heirs, Anne has effectively cornered Camilla, forcing a confrontation over the very definition of what it means to be part of the family. The message is clear. The Parker Bowles children may be the King's stepchildren, but they are not and will never be stakeholders in the sacred geography of the British monarchy. The most explosive element of this internal royal war lies not in the mist-covered Highlands, but in the rolling hills of Wiltshire at Ray Milhouse. This property, a historic stone manor purchased by Camilla in 1996 for £850,000 following her divorce from Andrew Parker BS, has long been her fortress of solitude. It was the one place where she could shed the heavy mantle of the Queen Consort and simply be a mother and grandmother. However, in early 2026, this sanctuary became the smoking gun in Princess Anne's investigation into what she perceives as a systematic asset grab by the Parker BS faction. A scandal broke when property records quietly flagged by Anne's network of administrative loyalists revealed that Camilla had executed a clandestine transfer of ownership. The title of Ray Milhouse was moved into a sophisticated trust structure, effectively placing the multi-million-pound estate into the hands of Tom Parker BS and Laura Lopes. On the surface, this appeared to be standard estate planning, a mother looking out for her children. But within the context of the British monarchy, where every move is scrutinised for its impact on the Crown, the timing and secrecy of the transfer sent shockwaves through the palace. Princess Anne's primary contention is that this transfer was conducted under the radar, bypassing the informal but essential council of the blood. In the royal family, especially concerning the Queen Consort, personal finances are never truly private. They are inextricably linked to the sovereign's wealth and the public's perception of the monarchy's fiscal responsibility. Anne has reportedly argued that by transferring Ray Milhouse now, Camilla was attempting to avoid the massive inheritance tax implications that would arise should King Charles's health deteriorate further. The fury felt by Anne and shared by Prince William stems from the perceived hypocrisy of the move. While the King is undergoing grueling cancer treatments and the family is being told to slim down the monarchy to save costs, the Queen Consort was allegedly using royal legal advisors and tax specialists to insulate her own children's inheritance. Various interpretations of the palace's internal legal memos suggest that Anne viewed this as a betrayal of the belt-tightening ethos she has championed for 5 decades. To Anne, the monarchy is a lifetime of service. To Camilla, it appeared to be a temporary window of opportunity to fortify her family's private wealth. The urgency of Camilla's property maneuvers cannot be separated from the somber reality of King Charles's medical battle. Since his diagnosis in early 2024, the king has shown remarkable resilience, but the toll of the illness is visible. Insiders suggest that Camilla, perhaps fearing a future where her influence is diminished under King William V, decided to act quickly to settle her affairs. This panic buying of security for her children has been interpreted by the Princess Royal as an admission of misplaced priorities. Princess Anne has pointed out that while the Queen Consort was busy signing over Wiltshire acreage, the King was struggling to fulfill his constitutional duties. The contrast between Anne's 500-plus official engagements a year and Camilla's focus on her children's real estate portfolio has created a rift that may be impossible to bridge. And sting operation to bring the Ray-Mill transfer to light was not just about land. It was about exposing a perceived lack of commitment to the institution that Camilla now leads as its highest-ranking female. The consequences of the Ray-Mill exposure have been swift and severe. Under Anne's relentless pressure, a grey eminence of royal lawyers has been tasked with investigating whether any Crown resources, be it time, counsel, or funds, were diverted to facilitate this private transfer. The implication is clear. If royal resources were used to benefit private citizens, Tom and Laura, then a serious ethical breach has occurred. Furthermore, this event has triggered a broader debate about the Parker Bowles privilege. For years, the public was told that Camilla's children would remain strictly on the sidelines, private citizens with no royal footprint. The Ray-Mill scandal has proven that while they may not have titles, they are benefiting from the royal machinery in ways that the average British citizen could never dream of. Anne's outrage is rooted in the belief that if you are not of the blood and you do not do the work, you should not be touching the till. The Ray-Mill manoeuvre has effectively ended the era of quiet tolerance for Camilla's dual life. Princess Anne has made it clear that she will not allow the monarchy to be used as a vehicle for the private enrichment of the Parker Bowles dynasty. As the investigation into the Wiltshire transfer continues, Camilla finds herself in a position she hasn't been in since the 1990s. The outsider, the other woman whose motives are doubted and whose every move is tracked by a family that values duty above all else. In this battle of wills, Anne has the ultimate weapon, the unwavering belief that the crown belongs to the nation, not to those who merely happen to wear it for a season. As the dust settled on the revelation of the Ray-Mill house transfer, Princess Anne did not retreat into the shadows of the palace. Instead, she launched a calculated counteroffensive designed to strip away the royal veneer that had begun to coat the Parker Bowles family. This phase of the conflict, which observers are calling the restoration of boundaries, saw the Princess Royal leveraging her unique position as the king's most trusted advisor and the family's most disciplined worker to force a dramatic re-evaluation of Camilla's family status. Princess Anne's first move was to address the informal access that Tom Parker BS and Laura Lopes had enjoyed since their mother's ascension. For years, two had navigated the royal world as shadow royals, individuals who attended high-profile events like the coronation and stayed at royal estates without the scrutiny that comes with a title. Anne, however, viewed this ambiguity as a dangerous precedent. She reportedly initiated a series of meetings with the master of the household and the heads of royal security to demand a strict codification of guest protocols. The result of this intervention was a chilling normalization of Parker BS's status. Under Anne's new directives, Tom and Laura were no longer to be treated as VIP family, but as private guests of the Queen. This subtle shift in nomenclature carried massive practical consequences. Interpretations of the updated security protocols suggest that any use of royal transport, staff, or facilities by Camilla's children must now be pre-authorized by a central committee, one where Princess Anne's influence is paramount. This move effectively gutted the sense of entitlement that had grown around the Parker BS clan, leaving them as outsiders peering in through a reinforced glass ceiling. Perhaps the most devastating blow to Camilla's ambitions was the formation of a unified front between Princess Anne and the King's direct heirs. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, and Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, have reportedly found common ground with their aunt in their desire to protect the Crown's assets. While William and Edward have historically maintained a polite distance from their step-siblings, the Ray-Mill scandal and the commercialization of Balmoral forced them to take a stand. This alliance, dubbed the Heirs Accord, issued a series of quiet but firm demands to the king. They requested a complete separation of Camilla's private family life from the official operations of the Crown. Specifically, Prince William is said to have expressed grave concern over the long-term management of Balmoral and Sandringham, properties he is destined to inherit. By aligning with Anne, William and Edward provided the blood legitimacy to Anne's administrative crusade. They signalled to King Charles that the family was not divided on this issue. Rather, it was the Queen Consort who stood alone in her attempts to prioritise her private bloodline over the institutional legacy. Anne's focus then returned to the 50,000-acre Balmoral estate. She did not merely object to the Parker Bowles' presence. She took active steps to reclaim the land for the traditional royal line. Reports from the Highlands suggest that Anne has re-established her authority over the estate's management, particularly regarding the preservation of its historical and environmental integrity. She has reportedly blocked several modernisation projects proposed by Camilla's associates, which were seen as attempts to make the estate more family-friendly for the Parker Bulls' grandchildren. Instead, Anne has doubled down on the estate's role as a working Highland farm and a sanctuary for the sovereign. She has been seen personally inspecting the boundaries and engaging with the gillies and stalkers, many of whom have worked for the royals for decades, and harbour a deep loyalty to the old ways represented by Anne. By doing so, she has made Balmoral an unwelcoming environment for those who do not respect its solemnity. The message to Tom and Laura was delivered through action. If you cannot ride, hunt, and live by the rigorous standards of the Highlands, you have no place in its halls. The fallout for Camilla's children has been described as thoroughly demoralising. Once seen as the rising stars of a modern blended royal family, they now find themselves in a social and logistical wilderness. The Parker Bulls' privilege has been replaced by the Anne audit. Every invitation they receive, every room they occupy, and every favour they ask is now subject to a level of scrutiny that makes their presence a burden rather than a joy for the king. Insiders suggest that the tension has reached a point where Tom and Laura have significantly reduced their visits to royal properties, fearing the cold shoulder or a direct confrontation with the Princess Royal. The themed, tragic, pitiful aspect of their situation is the sudden realization that their mother's crown does not extend to them. They are witnessing the clipping of their wings in real time, orchestrated by a woman who views their very existence in royal spaces as an administrative error that must be corrected. By the spring of 2026, the power dynamic within the palace had fundamentally shifted. Princess Anne's Iron Protocol has successfully re-established the boundaries that were blurred during the first 2 years of Charles's reign. Camilla, though still Queen Consort, has been forced to accept that her private family will remain exactly that private. The Ray Millhouse scandal served as the catalyst for Anne to prove that the old guard still has the power to protect the monarchy from within. As the king continues his recovery, he does so under the watchful eye of a sister who has made it clear. The crown is a sacred trust, and she will not see it bartered away for the sake of a step-family's inheritance. At the centre of this escalating storm stands King Charles III, a monarch whose reign has been defined by a grueling duality, the pursuit of a modernised monarchy, and a sudden, debilitating battle with cancer. Since early 2024, the king has faced a personal and political crisis that has tested his resolve and his relationships. While he battles his illness, he finds himself caught in a paralysing crossfire between the woman he loves, who seeks to secure her children's future, and the sister he relies upon, who seeks to secure the crown's sanctity. The king's reaction to the Ray Millhouse scandal and the Balmoral dispute has been one of exhausted mediation. Interpretations of his recent private directives suggest a man deeply pained by the division in his household. Charles has historically been a defender of Camilla's family, viewing Tom and Laura as his own. However, the exposure of the clandestine property transfers by Princess Anne forced the king to confront a harsh reality. His modernised vision of a blended family was being perceived by his core advisors and heirs as a breach of constitutional ethics. Insiders suggest that the king's health has made him more susceptible to Camilla's domestic diplomacy. Throughout 2025, as he underwent treatments, the Queen Consort reportedly became the primary gatekeeper of his schedule and energy. Princess Anne's exposure of the Ray Mill transfer was in many ways an intervention intended to snap the king out of this domestic bubble. Anne's argument to her brother was blunt. By allowing the Parker BS family to blur the lines of royal property, Charles was inadvertently weakening the very throne he had waited 70 years to occupy. The tension reached a fever pitch during a private summit at Sandringham in early 2026. Different interpretations of this meeting describe a king who was torn and weary. On one hand, Camilla defended her right to manage her private assets for her children's sake, arguing that Ray Millhouse was never royal property to begin with. On the other side, Princess Anne and Prince William presented a unified front, arguing that the methods used utilising royal-adjacent legal structures and the timing during a national health crisis made it an institutional matter. Ultimately, the king was forced to concede to Anne's Iron Protocol. He reportedly authorised the audit of Balmoral guest expenses and signed off on the new restricted access rules for non-titled individuals. This move was a devastating blow to Camilla, signalling that even the king's devotion has its limits when the integrity of the monarchy is at stake. The consequence for Charles has been a fractured home life. The palace is now divided into zones of influence where the king must navigate a cold silence between his wife and his sister. This part of the crisis highlights the vulnerability of a slimmed-down monarchy. With fewer working royals to share the load, the personal failings or ambitions of a few can threaten the stability of the whole. King Charles now faces the final years of his reign, knowing that his attempts to bring the Parker BS family into the fold have resulted in their social exile, orchestrated by the very woman he trusts to keep the monarchy running while he fights for his life. The king is discovering that in the House of Windsor, the firm always comes before the family. a lesson Princess Anne was determined to teach him one last time. As the curtain begins to fall on this chapter of royal history, the landscape of the British monarchy has been irrevocably altered by the Princess Royal's Inquisition. The battle over Ray Mill House and the sacred moors of Balmoral has concluded not with a grand public statement, but with a silent, devastating restoration of the old order. The ultimate winner in this high-stakes chess match is not the king nor the queen consort, but the institution itself, preserved by the unwavering hand of Princess Anne. The current state of the Parker BS dynasty within royal circles can only be described as a total retreat. Since the exposure of the clandestine property transfers in early 2026, Tom Parker BS and Laura Lopes have virtually disappeared from the royal calendar. The various interpretations of this absence point to a coordinated effort by Princess Anne to ensure that private citizens remain private. The pitiful reality for Camilla's children is that they have gone from being the celebrated extended family of a new king to becoming cautionary tales of overreach. They have been stripped of the informal perks they once took for granted. No more royal helicopters to attend private events, no more security bubbles for their family holidays, and no more unmonitored access to the king's private retreats. Camilla herself has been forced into a role of quiet penance. While she remains the queen consort and continues to support King Charles during his cancer recovery, her influence over the administrative soul of the monarchy has been severed. The Princess Royal has successfully installed a firewall between the Queen's private family interests and the Crown's assets. Observers at the palace have noted that Camilla now moves with a newfound caution, aware that every document she signs and every guest she invites is being cross-referenced by a network of auditors loyal to Anne and the Prince of Wales. Princess Anne's actions in 2025 and 2026 have established what many are now calling the Anne Doctrine. This unwritten but ironclad rule dictates that the monarchy is a closed-loop system of duty. It asserts that those who marry into the family or are connected via blended family lines have a responsibility to serve the institution but no right to harvest its prestige or assets for their personal bloodlines. By taking back the land around Balmoral and forcing a transparent audit of Ray Mill House, Anne has sent a message to future generations. The Crown is a sacred trust held on behalf of the nation, not a family business to be managed for private profit. This doctrine has also profoundly influenced the preparation for the next reign. Prince William, who was once seen as a modernizer who might welcome a more relaxed family structure, has instead pivoted toward his aunt's hardline traditionalism. The alliance between William and Anne during this crisis has ensured that when the Prince of Wales eventually ascends to the throne as William V, he will inherit a monarchy that is leaner, more disciplined, and more strictly separated from the celebrity culture that Anne so despises. At Balmoral, the 50,000-acre estate that served as the primary theatre of this war, the atmosphere has returned to one of solemnity. The public tours that King Charles opened in 2024 and 2025 continue, but under much more stringent conditions that respect the privacy of the royal line, a compromise Anne insisted upon. The invasion of non-royal guests has ceased, and the estate has once again become a place of retreat for those who carry the burden of the crown. The historical significance of this victory cannot be overstated. Had Anne not intervened, Balmoral might have set a precedent where private royal lands became indistinguishable from high-end vacation rentals for the wealthy and well-connected. Instead, the Highland Sanctuary remains a testament to the late Queen Elizabeth II's vision, a place of work, prayer, and the quiet continuity of the Windsor line. As we look toward the remainder of 2026 and beyond, the question remains, what is the legacy of Queen Camilla? She will likely be remembered as a devoted companion to King Charles, a woman who endured decades of public scrutiny to stand by the man she loved. However, in the annals of royal property and protocol, her name will now be forever linked to the Ray Mill scandal. This event served as a reminder that even at the height of power, the rules of the British monarchy are designed to protect the many from the ambitions of the few. Princess Anne, at 75 years old, has proven that she is more than just the hardest working royal. She is the ultimate guardian of the flame. By exposing the property maneuvers of her sister-in-law and re-establishing the boundaries of the Highland estates, she has ensured that the monarchy remains a respected, disciplined institution. The crisis that could have fractured the family has instead reinforced its foundation. The story of Anne versus Camilla is not just a tale of two women or two families. It is the story of an ancient institution's immune system working to expel a perceived threat. As the king continues his journey of health and service, he does so knowing that the borders of his kingdom, both physical and ethical, are being watched by the toughest royal alive. The Parker B's era of influence has met its match in the Princess Royal, and the crown for now remains secure in its traditional, uncompromising majesty. In the end, the silence that has fallen over Ray Mill House and the Highland moors is not one of defeat, but of a hard one, icy peace. A peace dictated by the rules, the legacy, and the iron will of Princess Anne.